I think the real question is though, like, what do we do for an opening? It's been all these times and things and stuff, and this is the first time we actually get to do this together.
I know, it's exciting. Well, me and Aurora are consummate professionals, so
Yeah, you backstab. You talk about me behind my back all the time,
it's not behind your back if we're doing it and we know you're going to hear it after.
so it's intentional that you're not denying it.
I'm just, I'm just calling it like I see it, man. It is what it is.
Welcome everyone to Double Dip Draft.
Double dip draft, let's read.
Oh
That's one for the
no, this is not Let's
wrong
Read.
video. Wrong video.
Welcome.
Hey, what is
To
Come on,
playoffs.
everybody.
A little delayed, but this is basically happening right before the live stream kicks off.
That's right. We're doing a little clever trickery with the premiere function on YouTube. So if you're watching this as it live premieres, then right as it finishes, head on over to twitch.tv/SpoodSSBM so that you can catch the live top 4 playoffs action. I, of course, as always, am your host, Spood, coach of the Southtown Sandslashers, and joining me today
Is CABRAL, coach of the Hash League Aegis Slashers. Finally, we actually get to sit down together and commentate because we have not done that all season.
Yeah, it sucks being in a different division, man. I feel like we make good stuff, but it kind of,
It never
puts a
works
wall.
out.
But it's just you and me and this brick wall we've built between us.
You, me, and this brick wall of divisions between us. Ah,
But hey, we both made it to playoffs. You may have noticed if you've been keeping up with the previous recap videos, so you may be wondering why either of us are here. And the answer to that is that basically everybody who... Well, I don't want to spoil too much. We'll say that it was very inconvenient to find someone who could do it that wasn't in playoffs.
yeah, it was a little difficult with that, but what a hell of a first week of playoffs it was. And
Certainly.
it's just we have some really good players in playoffs this season. I'm not just saying that because you already said that we're both in it. And that's the reason why we're commentating together. Otherwise, this wouldn't be happening.
Collusion.
But exciting matches, and we have the big usuals that have come up for playoffs this time around.
Yeah, playoffs was really just stacked all the way down. I think the only player that we would have seeded to make playoffs that didn't manage to do it this season was Firebolt, who ended up placing behind you and Mass and Nihilus in
Yes,
the
and-
Crown division. But
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah, I mean, the top 8 we have, IDM, Scoots, Aurora, Vincent, myself, who else? Yeah, you, and then there's Claire and
I think that's
Kenneth.
Kenneth, yes.
Yeah.
And that's everyone.
So that's our top 8, and so it was threats all the way down. Really scary. Scoots having just barely clinched that number 1 spot in Crown Division right at the last second. But we'll take it as we do it. We're doing these kind of in an arbitrary order. I guess let's just jump right on into our first match of playoffs, which was Kenneth versus Aurora. It's actually the final match that was played, so this is probably... I assume you scrolled up and clicked the links in reverse order. When
Yes,
they were
I
played.
did. That is what it is. So we're going backwards. You're going to see them in order and how they went. This was the last match played. I believe it was the only match on the weekend, actually, compared to... the other matches, because my match was first and we went like 2 days into playoffs, I'm pretty sure, or something like that.
Yeah, everyone was really antsy for it. I mean, it was, me and IDM played first, and then, me and Scoots played first, and then you and IDM played after, and then I
Yes.
believe it was Claire, Vincent, and then there was like a huge gap in time, and then Kenneth and Aurora finally played on like Sunday or
Yes.
Saturday.
And speaking of Kenneth and Aurora, I think they brought some really good teams. Aurora bringing Kartana, and actually Aurora's brought a lot of staple Pokemon overall throughout her entire season. Never once having brought type Null at all in the entire
Never.
season. But bringing Blastoise, which has been here for a majority of games. Kartana and Celebi have been here for, I think, almost every game, except for like one, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, Celebi, I think, has come a bit less than Kartana, but you'll see, you know, Kartana, Blastoise, Arcanine here a lot, and then Celebi, Moltres, and Golurk are all really good, but they, you know, they take a little bit of setting up, or, you know, they have a few more weaknesses, so they're, instead of being like a defensive core plus, like, Blastoise can do everything. I mean, it's good at defense, it's good at hazard control, it's good at offense, it can pivot with Flip Turn, it can set up with Shell Smash. So that thing is really, really scary. So you see it come a lot, and Kartana, alternatively, is really good at doing basically like 3 flavors of hyper offense. You know, you can set up, you can scarf it, you can throw a Choice Band on it, if you're comfortable with your speed tiers. And... yeah, I mean, Aurora, like, that Kartana has gotten her so much mileage this whole season. It's put in a ton of work.
I believe it's lead killer right now in the division next to who was it? Jirachi.
Yes, I think Jirachi clinched it in the main season. Or did he? I'm gonna go check on that. You entertain the people while I'm fact checking. Independent fact checker Spood is going to make sure you're not saying things that are incorrect.
Yeah, please do that. We also have Chemist, by the way, bringing Dragapult, which is just a great Pokemon. It does a lot of work and a lot of damage, especially with what Aurora has to bring to the table. It does have to worry about being hit by anything physical, though, for the most part.
Yeah, so Jirachi was the kill leader at the end of the season, I think.
That's insane.
If it wasn't, then it was, like, tied right there with some other Pokemon.
Yeah.
I think it was like Jirachi typed Feeny. I don't have the stats as they were before playoffs round 1 in front of me, so you know you have to take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, Kartana. I mean, needless to say, Kartana is going ham this whole season. It's staggering. What, like base 181 attack, I believe.
Something dumb like that with stupid high speed and special attack as well, actually, too.
Yep. Yeah. Base 181 attack. Its special attack is garbage. Its special defense is even more garbage. It's actually atrocious on the special side.
Yes, it cannot take a single hit, essentially. But it will kill anything if given the opportunity, and it absolutely has done that. We also see on Kemen's side, by the way, we see Clefable likely coming unaware, because that's just a fun set to run on Clefable. It does a lot of work, and it's just good. Yeah,
Magic Guard Clef, I think... it hasn't fallen out of favor necessarily, but you'll see a lot more unaware just given sort of the landscape of OU nowadays, and then even by extension like Draft League. You know, when you look at a team like Aurora where she has Moltres, which, you know, Berserk plus Nasty Plot plus Agility, that thing goes absolutely insane.
Shell Smash Blastoise.
Shell Smash Blastoise being the obvious other, you know, answer. Unaware Clef sits on both, prevents any, you know, preemptive setup. You know, you can safely knock Galarian Moltres below half and not worry about losing your whole team.
Yep.
Especially given that it resists one of its stabs in Fiery Wrath. So yeah, basically as long as Clef is alive, Galarian Moltres and Blastoise really struggle.
Yep.
And as long as conversely you've got like Rotom Heat alive, like Kartana really struggles to get in on that, and if it's choice locked, then it's forced to hit different moves, right? Like Leaf Blade, you know, it's good versus like Nidoking, right? Does neutral damage, like high crit stab, but then if you bring in a Scavalier, then you're quad resisted. So that's kind of the nature of the beast. If Aurora really wants to abuse speed or get like insane power on Kartana, then Chemith does have a good array of defensive coverage to prevent things like Smart Strike from killing everything, or Leaf Blade from killing everything, or Knockoff from killing everything.
Yeah.
And then conversely, yeah, on Aurora's side, like Golurk is a really good generalist. No Guard Poltergeist does so much to this whole team.
It does way too much, in fact.
Dynamic Punch is always really nice just to proc confusion.
Yep.
Celebi, very reliable rock setter. Intimidate, Teleport, Boots, Arcanine, also really huge pain in the ass to deal with if you're Chemith. So yeah, I mean, Aurora's got some scary stuff. Chemith, I think, by default, is forced to play a bit more defensive in this matchup. I think anyone really is, unless they have, like, a perfect cart check that can switch in over and over and over and just take nasty hit.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is very few Pokemon in this game, let alone anything on Chemith's team, besides maybe, like, Rotom Heat.
Yeah. And with all that said, I think we should actually get started with the video itself, if you're ready for it.
Yeah, let's take a look.
It's in a book. Sirfetch'd comes out, likely the first impression, because that
first impression. Yeah. So Aurora doesn't have a great answer to first impression. Scrappy prevents the Intimidate from proccing on Sirfetch'd. But I think he doesn't necessarily reveal leak there, but the crit first impression is a good idea. Like if I'm Aurora and I got crit by that thing turn 1, I'd be like, okay, this thing is running leak.
Yeah.
But Kemeth is not keen on potentially getting like Will-O-Wisp or Thunder Waved or something, so.
Yep, speaking of Will-O-Wisp, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Doubling back out to Rotom Heat again.
Yeah, and see, that's kind of the dynamic of the match, is like, Kemeth wants to Volt Switch out in front of Arcanine, because even though Arcanine can't really touch Rotom Heat can't touch Arcanine either. The most it can do is like Pain Split and sort of wear it down with Thunderbolt, but a lot of the time you won't even see Thunderbolt because Rotom is such a good defensive pivot utility mon that you're going to use all 4 other moves for other shit.
Yeah.
And you'll see, you know, Thunder Wave reveal, Defog reveal, Volt Switch reveal. You don't have a lot of room for something like Thunderbolt when you've got Volt Switch already. Mm-hmm. So, and you see Pain Split being the 4th move as well.
Yeah, Poltergeist coming in, doing an insane amount of damage, and at this point, anything that comes in on Poltergeist is just going to take a hit. Dynamic Punch coming in, causing confusion, of course, because of the joys of no guard.
That's right. Poltergeist will never miss. Dynamic Punch will never miss. And this is really irritating for Kemeth to deal with, because that's one of his big defensive checks to like Kartana, brought way, way, way down. And then he has to sack this as well on a pretty close 2-hit KO Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Just to get in an answer. Arcanine comes in and gets obliterated by close combat. I think Aurora wasn't expecting anything to live it, you know, but didn't want to risk bringing in Celebi on like a first impression.
Yeah, definitely. Taking Arcanine's pretty nice for Kemeth.
Yeah, no, like, and again, like, taking down Arcanine is good. Losing Escavalier isn't so bad for Kemeth, because I think it was going to come more as a potential check to, like, Nihilego, which isn't here. Mm-hmm. And then Kemeth stays in here, kind of a risky play, given that I'm pretty sure Leaf Blade kills, unless it's, like, you know, a certain way not to be killed by it. But that Earth Power, man, behind the screen is just not even close to it. Well, it is close to enough.
It's
but, you know,
close, but I mean, had the screen's not been there, that might have been a roll to kill. I'm not too sure on that.
Yeah. And given that Clef is forced to run unaware, it's still getting warned by rocks constantly. First impression comes out there again.
Yep, click a knockoff, which is...
Yeah, Kevin knows he can knock.
Yep.
Ton of crits coming out, essentially, you know, virtually guaranteed for what it is.
Doubling out.
And then Aurora makes a very aggressive double, but it pays off, getting in Kartana in front of Clef, forcing Kemeth to make a sack.
Yeah.
This also potentially is a roll. It does clean 9% both times with Smart Strike. But now, again, Aurora does not have switch-ins to first impression. No. So Moltres here takes a insane amount of damage,
yeah,
55.
Nice crit right there coming in, and then we get Berserk Cannon off, and at this point, Kemeth should have switched out.
That's really the struggle. So the thing about Clef is that it's unaware, so it can always switch in on this thing, even if it's proc Berserk, which it has. And Kemeth, I guess, was expecting maybe to see Kartana come back in, so he risked his win con essentially on a gamble, on a really unsafe gamble that would not have paid him very much in terms of dividends. Yeah. And he loses on account of it.
Yeah,
you know, this Kartana suddenly, you know, it's locked into Smart Strike, I believe it's Scarf, because it'll outrun this Dragapult, and it just tears up the rest of Kemeth's team as soon as he loses his first impression, like, priority.
Yeah,
which would have, again, killed everything in one shot at this point. It did 55 to that Moltres. It probably wouldn't have killed Blastoise in one shot.
No.
But Blastoise is relatively slow and probably wouldn't have been able to one-shot it back without setting up, which it couldn't do without dying in one shot as well. And it didn't matter, really, if Sirfetch'd is healthy. It just has to be at enough HP to come in on rocks and then hit first impression to get a ton of damage on anything.
What was the fourth move on Clefable?
What did it show?
Nothing. Heal Bell,
Heal Bell, Soft Boiled, Thunder Wave. I know he said that he forgot to bring rocks on it, so probably Moonblast.
Okay.
But it's really unfortunate because it was such a back and forth, pivot heavy, like defensively checked battle. There was a lot of stalemate conditions where they were just desperately trying to wear down wall versus wall. But eventually Kemeth loses his win con way too early. If he had kept that alive, you know, if he'd gone into Clef, for example, taken an Air Slash, taken like 30, didn't flinch on the next one. Obviously, you know, if he'd flinched on it, then it would have been one thing, but he had enough HP on that Clef to come in, live 2, even if he did get flinched once, or like live 2 to come in hard, then take one more to get off the soft boiled. And then at that point, force this to get out, and you get a clean Moonblast on something, and
Actually, yeah, because this is only at 12%. Like, this has been at 12% the entire time. If Moonblast came up and actually hit that as it came in,
yeah, then it would have died. And Moonblast on Blastoise, wouldn't have done a ton. Probably did like 30 or 40, but it also, you would have been able to just knock it over and over again because it can't set up in front of you because you're unaware. And if you bring in Moltres, it's weak to Moonblast, and Celebi also just struggles a lot. So really just unfortunate from Kenneth. Basically just a huge blunder, and he just, like, I understand the logic behind the play, and he's explained it to me, and I understand what he was thinking, and he agrees, he's in agreement that was the game-losing play. But man, it's like, if you slip up just the tiniest bit, it's playoffs. You're done. So you got to play 100% sharp 100% of the time, and unfortunately, Kemet fumbled the bag just a little bit right at the end, allowing Aurora to get that aggressive sweep with Kartana right there at the end.
Yeah, and again, these are two top-notch players. This is an intense battle, and stuff like this is going to happen. Aurora's an insane player in Double Dip Draft as it is, but the win here goes to Aurora, and we should probably move on to our next match, which is a very, very fun, exciting match, actually, which is CLAIR, coach of the Maryland Electrics, versus Spoopman of the Hurling Haluchas. And Spoopman, of course, being almost undefeated over in my division, which is really crazy, having a really good season overall and doing great to make it to playoffs. We see a interesting set of Pokemon, a fun set for sure, with likely Sucker Punch, Crawdon, some Skill Link, Mochaccino as I call it, because I can never say its name.
Mochaccino,
Accelerock as well. So we have a lot of priority that it looks like we'll likely have here. We also see Indeedee, though, on CLAIR's side, probably bringing Psychic Surge to counter that.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting and, frankly, a very exciting fight, because so the last one we covered, Aurora was second seed in the Armor Division versus Kemeth, who ended at third seed in Crown. And this is the inverse of that. This is third seed of Armor Division versus second seed of Crown Division. Vincent Hairlin Halucha's Spoopman just getting knocked down from his first place dominance right in the last week. Forced to fight CLAIR round one of playoffs, and this is the same thing that happened last season, where they fought each other first round of playoffs, and Vincent Spoopman, he won that. He beat CLAIR fairly handily. So I think it's really interesting to see the run back here, and like you said, I mean, very good observation from Team Preview. Crawdon and Lycanroc are both Pokemon that rely a lot on aggressive priority. The adaptability Aqua Jet off of Crawdon is insane. I mean, it will obliterate Pheromosa. There's really not great switch-ins to it.
Yeah.
And then Lycanroc's Accelerock, again, very strong versus something like Arctozolt and Abomasnow. And especially versus Arctozolt, because when that thing gets off Slush Rush, it's really hard to outspeed unless you have a fast Scarfer or priority. Which is kind of, that's the logic behind CLAIR's team, and this was kind of a similar thing that Kemeth did last season with his Hail team, was, like, my Hail Sweepers are pretty frail, and they don't actually get that fast with Slush Rush. Like, they'll outspeed anything that's not really fast.
Yeah.
But you need to account for fast Scarfers and things. So, as a way to check that, Kenneth drafted Tapu Lele last season, that had Psychic Surge, and Indeedee this season is on CLAIR's team that has also got Psychic Surge. So, Psychic Surge is here to defend Pheromosa from getting obliterated by priority. It's here to prevent Slush Rush Arctozolt from getting obliterated by priority.
Yep. Which is always nice to have. We also see, of course, when I mentioned Slush Rush, we have the classic Hail set that CLAIR's been bringing to quite a few matches lately, with Abomasnow being one of the few options that was left for Hail.
She chose an interesting. I think that she free agented for Abomasnow. I think what she did was she swapped like a lower tier Hail setter, and I think she had a Alolan Sandslash, and she was like, actually, I'm going to grab Arctozolt and Abomasnow instead, which I think was a good play.
I grabbed Alolan Sandslash. I don't think I swapped out for it.
Man, let me go check her team, because I can see what her transactions were. Bear with me, YouTube viewers.
No, don't do it, YouTube viewers.
Bear with me, YouTube viewers.
Go watch another video until the stream happens. Go.
Okay, it was Arctovish. So she had Arctovish, she swapped it for Abomasnow. She had Vanillux, she swapped it for Arctozolt. So she basically took her Slush Rusher and her Snow Warning user and swapped them for different ones. And I think Abomasnow Arctozolt is definitely a better pair. Vicious Rend is obviously insane on Arctivish, but Boltbeak I think is a little bit better without something like the Strong Jaw boost, which you can't run Strong Jaw on top of the Slush Rush, obviously. So, not that Arctivish even gets Strong Jaw. That's like a Dracovish thing.
That is a Dracovish, but that's banned. That's a no-no.
That's right. So, Boltbeak is just really, really strong, and on something like a Slush Rush Abuser, you know, that thing, it doesn't even need an attack boost to get close to one-shotting most things, you know, unless it's like really, really bulky.
And we do have Porygon, who's been here every single time because it's just really, really good. And then we also have Silvally. The question is it Ghost or is it Fairy this time?
That's a good question. That is a pretty, you know, notable part of Spookman's draft, is that he's got this Silvally, but he doesn't have any ghosts and he doesn't have any fairies. So most of the time that he's brought it either ghost or fairy to plug in that hole wherever it's appropriate. But in this matchup versus Claire, well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started here.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
That's a Crawdon.
Yeah, Crawdon in front of Pheromosa is already a really scary lead for Claire.
And we see Aqua Jet, of course, coming in, but doesn't do anything because of Psychic Terrain. So Valley Steel comes in. It's not Registeel, though.
Yeah. See, that could have been like a really pivotal opener read if he'd gone for Raw Knockoff, but that's really scary in front of Pheromosa, so I totally get why you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But also, that Flame Charge was a bit questionable, given that, of course, Porygon is still alive and has Eviolite, and this thing is at full health. Even Silvally Steel is going to have a hard time breaking through Solid Rock, Rhyperior. Spookman, very clever, gets off the Reflect, knows that he's going to be able to live that Earthquake and kill back with an Earth Power.
Yeah.
And DD comes in, and I think it's fair to assume that this thing is Scarf. I think that's what Vincent would assume, and I think it's pretty clear that it is.
Yeah, because he switched out there after using Energy Ball, so likely is Flame Charge coming in on...
Then again, yeah. Very aggressive. He's trying to set up in front of this Porygon, and Claire is just not having it. And again, with Eviolite, you'll see this thing at +4 with a base, 110, 120 stab attack?
Like that.
75%. Yep. This does not do enough to kill this.
No. I'm wondering if 2-hit would have been better, so had he hit the previous turn when it was at +2 and then hit again at that then turn right after, would have killed in 2 shots instead of trying to go for the 1 shot.
I don't believe so. I think it's generally better to go for the double sword stance because it's really, you know, how do I put it? You want it to be able to ensure kills on everything when it comes in if you're trying to set up with that Flame Charge. I think, if anything, he probably should have gone just for the Sword Stance over the Flame Charge on the opener if you wanted that to work out.
Yeah.
But this thing, gets a really free U-turn here. Or a knock, actually, is what he goes for, which is way better. And also, the Porygon traces Defeatist, which is also quite funny. But now Vincent is really playing on the back foot here. He switches this in on the Thunderbolt and manages to live it, but then dies off the hail damage.
Yeah.
And gets in Lycanroc. And now that this thing's been knocked, a Brick Break is enough to kill it. But it having its Eviolite for so long made it really tough for Vincent to play that aggressly. And Vincent actually does a 5-head, though. That's 5-head. Pause that. I want to talk about that, because that's really, really cool. So Accelerock is a priority move, which you'll see was blocked by Psychic Terrain. So for the uninitiated, you might think that that was a terrible play. But what you don't know is that Accelerock will actually prevent Boltbeak from doing double damage, even if it doesn't make contact.
Yes.
As long as Boltbeak moves second, it doesn't matter if it was damaged ahead of time or not. So it's really weak to things like Prankster and Priority. And even in Psychic Terrain, where the Accelerock doesn't connect, he knows that he's got one more turn of Psychic Terrain to burn, so he can just go for the Accelerock and hit it twice, and even as long as he lives a Boltbeak, then he'll be fine. Yeah. So very, very clever from Vincent there.
And Accelerock does not
almost
kill.
Pays off, but yes, unfortunately.
Very unfortunate.
The built-in focus band, you know.
Yeah.
And then he unfortunately sacks off his Archeops for no reason there. I think it would have been clever.
Serve a lot of utility at that point, right?
Well, no, but it's a stack, right? So on that turn, instead of having to go hard into Minccino, you could have gone into Archeops to sack.
That's true.
But yeah, now Expanding Force happens. Claire switches out and does the same thing that he could have done with Archeops with her Arctozolt.
Yep.
Brings in Pheromosa and knows that it can't be hit by Aqua Jet. Can't be, you know, she doesn't even risk like a high jump kick or anything. She just goes for the fully accurate close combat.
And wins the match, defeating the near undefeated, now defeated Double E because it's 2 losses.
Spoopman, poor guy. Really echoes of Aurora's season last season, where she went 6-1, lost basically her last week, her week 7, prevented her from going undefeated, and then she immediately lost her round 1 of playoffs. Vincent now doing the exact same thing, winning 6 weeks in a row, losing his week 7, then losing his playoffs round 1. And that is so tragic, given how, frankly, menacing he's been this whole season. Just completely, I mean, he made it look so easy versus the Crown Division. And unfortunately now drops to Claire, who manages to advance to her first top 4, which is really, really impressive.
Yeah, but good fight overall. Just good players. Fun match.
Yeah.
Really well done.
You start to see really like how well put together the psychic terrain plus like weather abuse core is. I think that would work also very well with things like Sand Rush and Swift Swim. You know, that psychic terrain, it really, really helps. You can really put a dent in Pokemon like Crawdaunt and Lycanroc, who really rely heavily on you know, priority attacks. So very, you know, clever team building from Claire. She brought what she needed and she played it just perfectly fine, you know?
Yeah. Definitely did. Speaking of people who didn't play perfectly fine, my match versus IDM4.
Yeah, CABRAL 095 of the Hatchling Age Slashers versus IDM of the Brussels Espions. CABRAL being kind of the rising star, I just slid right in at the last second.
Yeah.
You were really muscling for that playoff spot with Mass up until the very bitter end.
Like, it wasn't just like Mass. I had to worry about Nihilus. I had to win in such a way to where I couldn't have less than 2 Pokemon in my differential in order to make playoffs.
Yeah. And that's high stress, I mean, even in the best case scenario. But you managed to do it, and you were rewarded with the unenviable fate of having to fight IDM4 in round 1. Brussels Espions. If you're not aware, if you somehow made it into this video without knowing who IDM is, I can describe him for you in one word, and that is champion. IDM4, every time that he loses, it gets nominated for a Dippy. Like, that's just the bottom line, is that IDM losing is so rare, especially to people below sort of the very highest caliber of double dip player. Like, you could potentially see him dropping to someone like Vincent, or, you know, he's been having a hard time versus Claire. He dropped versus Aurora before. But, I mean, even if you, like, zoom out and look at their lifetime record, he's played Aurora 8 times and only lost once, and Aurora's incredible, you know? Like, she's really, really damn strong. So IDM is no joke. So to beat IDM, you either need the cheese of a lifetime or incredible hacks, or you just need like a winning matchup. Because I feel like mano a mano, like 10 times out of 10, IDM is going to beat his equal, because he's just, there is no equal.
Yeah, and I've said this in other previous videos, like he is a physical calculator. He's got one in his brain, I'm certain of it. You
could be forgiven for thinking that he doesn't, given how long his turns generally take. But he does, he puts a lot of thought into it. He runs over everything with a very fine-tooth comb. And so IDM on the warpath, having only dropped a game to Claire this season, I think, so far. Yeah. Let me double check that to make sure.
That should be the only thing. IDM beat Aurora in their head-to-head and lost to Claire, which was an upset, and that was nominated. We saw that.
Yeah, so he dropped to Claire and beat everybody else. So he's only lost to Claire this season.
Yep. And that was the upset.
Yeah, and that was the upset. I was nominated for a Dippy.
Yeah.
So.
And you'll see those in the video coming up.
That's right. Please, again, stay tuned for the live stream coming up. We're also going to, of course, be uploading the Dippies to the channel as well if you want to watch them postpartum, as well as the playoff streams in their entirety and some chopped up things. We'll get back to it. But
yeah, we'll get back to that.
Essentially, all of that whinging is to say, IDM, very, very strong. If you want any shot at beating IDM, you had better come with only your best. CABRAL.
I didn't come with my best.
Again. CABRAL definitely had some heat on his team. I think you could probably assume, given the tone of this opener, that your boy did not pull through, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Your team, honestly, again, like from Team Preview, quite scary. The Calm Mind Sylveon set can straight up, depending, of course, on the Klefki set, can beat Mudsdale, Walrein, Buzzwole, Goodra, special variants of Tapu Koko.
Yeah.
it's really, really strong versus this whole team. And
Yeah.
IDM, his only like really great answer to ice is Wall Rain, which of course is quad resistant to it, plus Thick Fat, which makes it 8 times resistant to it.
Yes.
And also makes it so that it can actually still resist Freeze Dry, which would normally do neutral on account of its water ice typing. So that's a really nice thing for Wall Rain to be able to do. But of course, the more you look at it, you're like, okay, actually, Wall Rain and Klefki are really the only good defense versus things like Ice and Fairy, which are very dominant on Cabral's team. So
yeah,
it's a tough game. You know, it's really tough for IDM, but he came prepared. Let's have a look and see what the Brussels Espions were able to do.
Go ahead and take a gander.
Yeah. This is a strong opener turn, actually, I think, from Cabral, because usually you'll see, if it's not Intimidate, it's a Moxie Crocodile, you'll see Earthquake come out. It's basically going to always be Scarf. And so using that Scarf to scout if the Coco is Scarf was a very clever idea, which he managed to then find out. So right off the rip, you know, Cabral knows IDM's Coco is Scarf. IDM can probably assume that Crocodile is Scarf as well.
Yeah. We get a Super Fang from that, the Wall Rain, and that's an insane move, actually, to take off a large chunk of health immediately on any player that comes in, especially because I struggle to hit Wall Rain on my team.
Yeah. Same as Nature's Madness, it just takes a clean 50% off of whatever switches in, but it's not fully accurate. IDM makes a really clever double there just to prevent getting toxic, and also to have reset his own timer. He kind of knows that Gastrodon can't get through.
Yeah.
He goes for the Blizzard, misses, but it wouldn't have done very much damage anyway. And he also always has Goodra, which can come in on this, even if it's a physical set, unless it's running that dual chop nonsense. It's quite scary. Man, it would have been crazy if you just like hard belly drummed on that like Stealth Rock switch in. You got your
I know, right?
But then you would have just died to a Scarf Coco, so it wouldn't matter. But anyway,
just click and play rough because it does so much damage, and I know from the beginning of the match that thing is scarfed.
Yep, good for Cabral there to kill off Wall Rain. That's big, progress there. But we'll see that he opted not to go for a +2 Shadow Sneak at that point, and take a note of it. It's important for later. Magmortar comes in, unfortunately getting shredded by rocks once again.
Yeah,
no
once again,
boots
that's a team building side of things, and the lack and joys of hazard removal.
Yep. And IDM making a very good play there, just going for the Sludge Wave, knowing that Cabral will probably bring this in and doesn't, it's like he doesn't have any steel types or any great resist besides the Toxic Gastrodon. So. And then clearing right the hell out of there so that you don't risk getting heavy slammed, also still a good idea.
Yeah.
And then Kyurem is still scary for IDM, but he does have his other ice resist in Klefki behind a screen, which still takes a ton of damage.
And I switched out there because Kyurem could have hit, but I wanted to get this Sylveon setup.
Yep. Sylveon goes for the sub here, and that gets you some guaranteed damage on Tapu Koko without the screen up.
In fact, 58% damage.
Yeah. Just lives at 42.
I switched out because I didn't want to lose it to Iron Head, although I did calc it and I would not have.
Yeah. So, really unfortunate, especially in these rocks and spikes. Again, just shred Cabral's team. His only hazard removal didn't even come. It's a Alolan Sand Slash.
Yes.
Rapid Spin, and it's not here. So IDM knows that unless you're rocking boots on everything, you're going to really struggle with these rocks. And now, yeah, Scarf Coco just does everything. Shadow Sneak does manage to crit there. But in hindsight, you can see that if Cabral had gone for a +2 Shadow Sneak earlier, then it would have died.
Yeah, then I would have had to deal with a lot of other Pokemon that I probably had a better chance against overall.
Yeah.
But
you had a few potential openings to get that damage on Coco, and just none of them came to fruition. And unfortunately, just between the stacked hazards and the Scarf Ironhead, just ran through so much of your team that there was not a lot of potential counterplay.
Yeah. But it is IDM, and I'll take that loss, and that's okay.
But it's IDM, yeah. You take what you get. It's getting to playoffs at all is such a frankly difficult thing to do.
Yeah, that was
given
just my goal
how
this season.
Intense it's gotten. So
making playoffs. I almost had it last season, but I just missed out. This time I actually made it, so hopefully next season I'll make it back better.
Again. Yeah. Perhaps. But now that you're going into next season, think about those scorned. Firebolt missing playoffs, he's got to have a fire lit under his ass. Mass especially. has got to be hungry for it after being so close. So getting to playoffs, it's only going to get harder every
season. Biggest double dip season there is. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, almost certainly is going to be. It's really, really exciting. Yeah. But thanks for playing with us, dude. It was really a treat to have you on. I thought you had a really, really strong season. You know, losing to IDM, it sucks. That's what happened to me last season. I got to round 1 of playoffs, and then IDM smoked me, so I know how it feels.
Yeah.
But you gotta be happy with what you got. That's true. And speaking of not winning them all, let's go on to our 4th match, starring yours truly. Why don't you introduce it?
Coach of the Southtown Sand Slashers versus Scoots. I almost said Magoots, but that's not what he goes by.
Scoots Magoots.
Scoots of the Dumble Spoons Army, which is such a weird name to say.
Yeah, very legacy name. That is very much a 2016 era Spoon fan name.
Yeah, very much is. And both players having a fantastic season. Cody, you bring in. I see that those gears grinding over there. That's Pokemon we haven't seen come to any of your other matches, if I recall correctly.
That is correct. This is the first time I brought Kling Kling. It actually sucks. I thought it would be amazing, and it's not. Hey. I don't know. I think I just had a lot of rough matchups for it this season. It actually does fairly well in this match.
There we go. Scoots, of course, being a fantastic player, just really good overall. Coming in, we see that classic Lando. Hold on, I see another thing across the waters. What is that? Another Lando?
Yeah. Oh. So. Let me set the stage for you. So Scoots has been holding steady the last few seasons as, I would say, the uncontested number 2 of this league.
Yeah.
Aurora is always floating up there. She's always going to be in contention with IDM. But Scoots kind of really has been standing out, you know, like near flawless or literally flawless seasons over and over and over and over again. You know, he has a pretty, I would say, not a rough streak in playoffs, but he does struggle a bit during playoffs. He managed to get to Grand Final Season 1 and didn't clinch it. Season 2, he got to really deep in the weird double elimination playoffs bracket. He got to 3rd place. Season 3, he got knocked out round 1 of playoffs. Season 4, he won. Like, straight up completely won.
Yeah, he won last season. He did a great job, had a really good game overall.
Yeah, so he's always in playoffs. I mean, the question of whether Scoots is going to be here is irrelevant because he always is. And Scoots, having only lost to Kemet this season and having been the one to unseat Spootman off of his first place throne in the Crown Division after that whole season, looked really strong, really, really scary coming into playoffs. And if he made it into that top 4, man, it was just going to be a bloodbath. Even if it was IDM on the other side of bracket, it was going to be scary. However, your boy Spood, ever the contender. If Scoots has had bad playoff luck, then I have had abysmal playoff luck. Because whereas he has made it to playoffs every time, I have had seasons where I don't make it. Season 3 in particular, being the one that got away. And even the other seasons where I did make it to playoffs, you know, I won the least stacked season of Double Dip Draft, having dodged IDM and Aurora in playoffs. And only beating Scoots in that Grand Finals. And then every time I fought Scoots after that Season 1 Grands, he's beaten my ass. And it hasn't been close. It's been an absolute slaughter every time.
Yeah.
So my matchup, you know, I've beaten Scoots like only in the moment where it counted and never any other time.
Yeah.
So this was pretty scary, but I will give it to myself that I had a pretty solid matchup. A lot of people don't have answers to Weavile. Scizor does really, really quite well versus Weavile.
Yes. Scizor's doing fantastic for you this season overall with its just great typing, and we only have Chandelure on Scoots' side that has any fire moves, but the thing is, you have a faster...
Well, let me chip in real quick and say that Exploud will pretty much always be running Fire Blast as well.
That's true. It does have, it does run Fire Blast.
And it's fast enough that it makes Scizor scared. Scizor is not a fast Pokemon.
No,
either.
no. I was talking about for speed-wise, you have Tentacruel to deal with Chandelure with, Tapu Fini and other Pokemon as well.
Yeah. So a lot of people do run Tentacruel slower, like T-Spikes, Rapid Spin, maybe Acid Spray or Sludge Bomb or something. It's clear body, so it gets an opportunity to sort of get in front of things and be really, utility focused. But Tentacruel, strong Pokemon. But what people kind of gloss over is that it has a very solid speed tier. I mean, it hits base 100. So to dump more speed into it, you will outspeed things like Chandelure Non-Scarf, which is below base 100. Scarf Boom Burst off of Exploud is not an issue necessarily because it's especially bulky and it has high speed. So it kind of trounces it in both of those categories. Tapu Fini, again, cannot beat base 100 speed without Scarf, and if it is Scarf, then it can't get through the type combination of Poison Water. So,
yep.
I had a pretty strong matchup. And of course, the Landorus Ditto. If you've played OU this generation, you know that the Landorus counter is Landorus. Like, the best thing you can do against Landorus is switch in your Landorus and, like, Toxic and Protect and U-turn and, you know, defog their rocks and shit. Like, Landorus's biggest nuisance is other Landorus. And even though it's not Therian, I think it's still, with that ground flying typing, really annoying to deal with. But Scoots, he had plans for the Lando Ditto opener. So why don't we take a look?
Yeah, it's in a book. Let's go ahead and get this started. Our last match of playoffs. We start with Landorus. We start with Landorus. Let's go. Okay. Scooch running an Intimidate Lando to take off some of that extra little damage. Setting up a sub. So likely we're going to see some setup here in just a second from this Landorus potentially.
Yeah, sub is very non-standard. Body slam on Landorus is very non-standard again. This was all specifically anti-Landorus tech.
Yeah. Again, explosion, which gets rid of the substitute, which is nice, and they cannot take a surf from this thing because you are scarfed, and Scoot should know that at this point.
Yeah. Well, he won't actually, because Landorus is also slower.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
It's 309 when it's not, or when it is Therian, I should say.
That's insane that it still outspeeds that by like 20 some odd points or something like that.
Also, that was a max Fizdef Scizor, and that knockoff did 61. So that was the most banded Weavile ever.
You know, I have to say, by the way, I like that Snow Miser and Heat Miser both made it to playoffs.
Yeah, that's really, I think, wonderful. And then Scoots being clever, you'll see that there's no sand, so it has to be sturdy. Scoots draining kisses to break the sturdy.
Yep. And
we exploded. If he had been running, instead of Scald, like Surf or Hydro Pump, would have been slightly different story, we'll say.
Yeah, definitely. Seeing that gear grind, or shift gear, sorry.
Yeah, so Kling Kling comes in, and this actually beats the whole team except for Chandelure, which Scoots realizes this and is forced to take a ton of damage. Plus, seeing that it took Rock's damage meant that it's almost certainly Scarf.
Yeah.
So, Scarf Tentacruel comes in, and now he knows I'm Scarf.
Yeah.
He figured I was max speed before, but now he knows I'm Scarf. And you'll see here too, again, Boom Burst does a lot. That's specs, but still, this thing is so specially bulky. It's like 125 base defense or special defense or something like that.
Doubles down into Lycanroc to just die to a Surf, Senzek and Weavile to potentially outspeed, because it does with an Ice Shard taking out Woder.
Yep. Doesn't want to take any more damage from that Surf.
Senzek's about to try and do a Fire Blast. Regidrago comes in though, expecting it.
Yeah, at this point it's a done deal because Regidrago outspeeds Exploud, and if this thing comes in, then Scizor can always switch in, even on a triple axle, which is the most it can do, and it does in fact go for the triple axle.
Snow Miser,
but he only gets the one hit, which doesn't matter too much. Like, if he'd hit both of these 3 times, I still would have lived.
Yeah, but that's okay anyway. Snow Miser's used to the cold, and he just shrugs it off and just goes ahead and kills and gets you the win, making you advance further into playoffs.
That's it. And I also wasn't running Bullet Punch, so thank God. Otherwise, I would have clicked it there, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I beat Scoots again. Woohoo! I'm really happy about that. At this point, that was a little over 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, it's been a bit since that happened. But I'm really, really proud of that win. It's really tough. You know, usually we don't like to get people on to talk about their own matches. That's why we try to segregate it by division. But I was really, really happy about that. I still am very happy about that.
The thing
and
is,
now,
literally everyone who has been on one of these things with voices, either they've joined me or they joined you, literally was in playoffs, with the exception of Nick, who has not been terribly available.
Yeah, who's been super, unfortunately not available. So you and I decided, fuck it, we'll harken back to our Season 4 coverage, a little bit, and we'll just cover our division.
Why not? If we're both in here, and you don't want 2 people in there, anyways, we're already in here. Why not? Plus, this will
get you used to our voices. Again, if you're watching this on the live premiere, coming up very soon after we talk about the opener for the bracket, we will have the stream starting. Twitch.tv/SpoodSSBM. We'll cover it again one more time.
Yeah.
But very exciting stuff. I can't believe I got it. Again, it was really at about like halfway through the match. I was kind of like, oh man. Like, this is good. I actually, I have a chance to win this, and I know my flowchart, and thankfully, Scoots' team, I think, is also, it's not a team that can bring a lot of heat. I mean, he did bring a pretty cool Landorus set on his end to scare my Landorus out.
That's a really cool Lando set, and the fact that he just survived the body slam with the substitute like that is crazy.
Yeah, he did scare the absolute bejeezers out of me. We'll say that. He forced the explosion. It's actually really funny because I blew up twice. He actually only got 2 kills this game, even though it was a 2-0.
Yeah.
Just on account of like Landorus and Gigalith both just exploded.
Yeah.
But you know, Scoot's always such a good player. I mean, he played around Sturdy Custap. He played around the Lando Ditto opener. You know, he clicked knockoff when it was appropriate, and it did just about 15 quadrillion damage to my Scizor. With the choice band. So I think like Scoots is really, really strong, but this was one where I felt like I had a pretty solid matchup, and it was like a really, you know, get in such and such thing on such and such thing, and it will never be able to do work to you. I think the only thing that could have gone different is if Feeney was not running Scald.
Yeah.
I might have been in a slightly worse position, but I would have still gone into Kling Kling and shift geared up and been able to kill it with a wild charge or a gear grind or something.
Yeah. That is the likely scenario. But with that, with us having gone through the battles and everything, here's what we're looking at coming up really soon for the live stream. We have our top 4. The semifinal matches will be as follows. We have Brussels Espions versus the Maryland Electrics. We also have the Hunsberg Haunters versus you. And this is going to be an insane last 4 matches. Plus, more than 4 matches. Well, no.
Well, it's 4. It's 4 matches, yeah. No, it's going to be both semifinals, then bronze, then grands.
Do we know the order that they're going to be in?
Yeah, it's going to be me versus Aurora first, then it's going to be IDM versus Claire, and then it's going to be bronze, and then it's going to be grands.
So there we go. Should be a fun-filled event, and honestly, stay tuned, grab some popcorn, grab some stuff, you know, while we, like, I guess fill out the rest of this video. I don't know if we're...
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd love to talk about the upcoming matches, kind of in terms of just the storyline for it, you know. Yeah. Claire versus IDM is actually a really interesting rivalry to have them show up on one of the semifinals, because Claire has beaten IDM every time they've played in Double Dip.
Yeah.
And Lifetime, if you're factoring in SSL performance as well, they're dead even on their matchup spread. Mm-hmm. And you cannot say that for anyone else.
No.
If IDM has fought you, he has a winning record, except for Claire. And so that is really crazy. And so Claire, having beaten Vincent, which was a really, really big win on its own, Claire moves into top 4 as the only player to not have already won. Myself, Aurora, and IDM all have a season under our belt. So the second that Claire goes down, someone gets their second win.
Yep.
But Claire, I mean, again, kind of the... I don't know if I would say that she's the underdog for the setup, but...
Because you remember, during the actual season itself, Claire has already beaten IDM as well, and that's the other thing to consider here.
Yeah, she beat IDM this season, I believe. So she beat IDM... Or she beat a lot of people. She only lost to me and Aurora.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate for her, because she's going to have to fight one of us in Grands if she makes it there.
Yeah.
But then conversely, to get to Grand, she has to beat someone she's already beaten. But that person is IDM. So unless IDM can pull some tricks, and trust me, IDM can pull some tricks, and is not afraid to do it, that's going to be a really fun, really interesting battle to watch.
I think it's crazy that the entirety of Armor Division is duking it out for the top Grand Finals.
Yes, that is true. Crown Division got completely swept again. This happened in Season 3. Yeah. Where Division 2 got completely obliterated, and in Season 4, only one player from the second division made it to top 4. Mm-hmm. So there's really kind of a curse. If you're in the second division, odds are you're not making it to top 4, just based on the last handful of seasons. So yeah, really insane. And since, you know, we had divisions in Season 2, but they were both like quite small. I think there were four-person divisions, or no, it was 12 people, so there were 6-player divisions. So it's like a 5-week season. Was really, really, you know, similar deal. Like, when you got to the end, it was like IDM from the group at the top was like really the only one there, whereas it was like Aurora and Scoots from the second group duking it out up into third. So it's really tough if you're in like the second division to actually make that top 4 run, just statistically. So really interesting that everything we have from now on are rematches, and only one player can win that hasn't won before. Yeah. So that's really like the big storyline. It's either Claire makes the dream run and she beats IDM a second time and then beats either myself or Aurora in grand finals and secures her first win, or it's going to be somebody's first repeat win. Because so far, Double Dip has changed hands every single time. It was mine, then it was IDM's, then it was Aurora's, and then it was Scoot's.
Yep. So we'll have to see who gets it for the 5th season. And with that being said, I think we're all out of time. I think it's time for
I think
you
it's
all
time too.
to get ready, to get excited, and grab some popcorn, because we're about to begin.
Link in the description. Twitch.tv/SpoodSSBM starting October 9th, Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Central Time. Please be there. We're going to do an hour of pregame show. There's going to be the Dippies, which is really, really hype. You're going to want to love... Even if you aren't playing, please come and watch the Dippies, because you don't know if you've won a Dippy yourself.
Yeah.
And just beyond that, I mean, it's going to be insane. No matter what happens, this is going to be one for the books. So,
all right,
please come through.
Stay tuned. Take care. I'm going to see you in the live stream. Cody, good luck on your match. Have fun.
Thank
Don't
you.
die.
I will do my best. If I get fourth, then it is what it is, but at least I got fourth, you know?
There you go. All right. Bye, everyone. See you there.
Goodbye. Twitch.tv/SpoodSSBM.
Cell phone.